This really bothered me. People with BPD more often die than get better. This comment was left on a post I made recently, and I want to make sure we all know the research on this because it's not true. It bothers me when there's false information out there, so I wanted to do this video to take all of this down. I'm Dr. Jen, a psychologist of over 20 years and a BPD specialist, so you know about me. I'm thrilled to tell you that the data from the landmark McLean study of adult development shows that the vast majority of people with BPD, borderline personality disorder, do in fact get better. Let's break down the actual numbers. So the most significant finding in BPD research over the last two-ish decades is the high rate of remission. Now, remission means you no longer meet the diagnostic criteria for the disorder. At the 10-year mark in this study, approximately 85% of people with BPD achieved remission. By the 16-year mark, that number had climbed to a staggering 99%. And this next statistic is also huge, and I'm so happy to share it. And that is that once someone achieves remission, they're highly likely to stay stable. Only about 10 to 15% of people who recover actually relapse into meeting the full diagnostic criteria again. Now, it's important to distinguish between two different types of getting better. So first, there is what's called symptomatic remission. So this is when you're no longer self-harming, having outbursts, you're no longer meeting the clinical checklist. Then there's social recovery. This means having a steady job, stable relationships, and a true sense of purpose. Now, while 99% eventually reach symptomatic remission, social recovery is often a slower process. About 60% of individuals achieve full social functioning. So this is an important distinction. And this is why modern therapy focuses not just on stopping those problematic behaviors, but on actually building a life worth living, which is a phrase from Marsha Linehan, the creator of DBT. So these recovery rates are hopeful. There are still risks associated with the disorder, and those must be taken seriously. So I'll say a bit about that. And that is that historically it's been cited that about 10% of people with BPD complete suicide. This usually occurs in the earlier years, so think late teens to late 20s, before treatment has had a chance to fully take hold. So we call this the danger zone. The highest risk period is often during the first few years after diagnosis or immediately following a discharge from a hospital. However, there is a major protective factor, and that is access to specialized evidence-based treatments like dialectical behavior therapy or DBT significantly slashes these mortality rates. So why do people get better? Well, there are two main reasons. First is neurological maturation. The prefrontal cortex, that part of the brain that's responsible for emotional regulation and impulse control, it continues to develop until our mid-20s. For many, the biological fire of BPD naturally cools as the brain matures. Second is evidence-based treatment. So we now have therapies specifically designed for BPD. Before DBT, mentalization-based therapy, and schema therapy, clinicians simply didn't have the right tools. With these tools, BPD has become one of the most treatable personality disorders in existence. EMDR also goes a long way in helping to resolve the trauma that's often associated with BPD. So while the journey involves significant pain and hard work, the statistical end state for the vast majority of people is recovery and stability from BPD. The goal of treatment is to accelerate the process. So stay the course. Recovery is not just possible, it's probable.